Hello and welcome to Paradox, Untold Stories from Athletic Directors with Dr. Danielle Lapointe and Dr. Dustin Smith. We have some crazy and unique stories for you, which are made possible by our sponsor, Wall of Fame. At the Wall of Fame, our mission is to bring your school's legacy to life. We transform school tributes to make it easier than ever to celebrate your whole community, showcasing your school's diverse history, proudest moments, and top role models. We understand that the true value of our Wall of Fame is in your content. Whether you are starting a new tribute or adding to an existing one, we give you all the resources you need to build an interactive experience and take your content to the next level. Speaking of next level, let's check in to see what Danielle and Dustin have for us today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paradox Untold Stories from Athletic Directors. Today is a very unique episode, and we're both very excited to be here. This is an episode that has been very much requested. We've had, people who've listened and followers who've requested this episode, and we have finally caved. Here it is. It's Dustin and I. How are you doing today, Dustin? Do you want to tell them what's going on today?
We're branching off, and as you mentioned, this is something that has been, I would say, highly requested, and
Absolutely.
probably highly anticipated, at least by one person. But we have been requested to interview each other and kind of tell stories that, we get to have the time of visiting with our guests and letting them tell stories. But this episode is an episode
Our
where we
stories.
get to tell our stories.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in the AD chair for a while, and we've experienced some situations
that may or may not be how we started this podcast. This may not be the basis why we're here.
Can I tell that story? Here's stuff that'll blow your mind how that happened, and
it's possible. Whatever happens today, I guess we're just winging it.
Your cringeworthy episodes ever since of. And I quote, I regret making this decision.
I said it once.
All right, but you did say it. Just for the record, that was stated.
Maybe.
By someone other than me.
Confirm nor deny.
So anyway, we're gonna have a fun episode here. We're just gonna tell stories that have happened to us, and so
just us. We got Dustin, Danielle today.
Dustin unfiltered. Danielle normal, whatever you want to say. Really, this is an opportunity for our listeners to get to hear from us, other than just our reaction to stories. You're going to get our reaction. You're going to hear just our questions that we would ask one another.
And we don't know each other's stories either. We didn't go in here, knowing. So I haven't told Dustin what mine are, and so you're going to get our honest reaction as well as get to know us a little better.
And in that vein, let's start with, tell us what the resume is not going to tell us about who Danielle Lapointe is. I know we have this on the discussion with our guests, our normal guests, and I don't want to say you're an abnormal guest. Well, maybe I did.
I wasn't prepared for this part. I didn't know we were going to do that.
Surely you've known this well enough. You've sat through these episodes and been present.
Oh yeah, I know.
But tell us what the resume doesn't tell us about who Danielle Lapointe is.
Okay. Well, I really enjoy doing things outside. I'm fortunate enough to live in Florida, and I have the ability to do those things year round, but I really like camping, and hiking is something I've recently become the last couple, I'd say like 10 years, really gotten into, because I don't have mountains here. Right? I grew up in New York, and now I live in Florida, and I miss having the mountains. So hiking is something that I really try to get to do multiple times a year, because it's flat here in Florida. I don't get to hike.
That really hiking? People call that walking.
No, I try to leave the state. I try to go to like the Smoky Mountains and like Gatlinburg and the Blue Ridge Mountains to actually do real hiking. So that's like a goal that I have. But to stay outside, I love paddleboarding. Paddleboarding is like my calm, it's a workout. I'm with nature. I love everything about paddleboarding, and I try to do it as often as I can, 2 or 3 times a week.
Just for clarification, you don't paddleboard while you hike.
I don't paddle
Okay.
well, like, those are separate times. I think
Okay.
everybody needed that clarification, thank you for that.
Right.
But that is what I like to do when I'm home, and yeah, love spending time with the family. I got a little guy, he's 4 now, his name is Mako, um, and I love spending time with him and that, camping and hiking and even paddleboarding. He'll sit, you know, at the foot of my legs and go with me, so love it.
And we got to get your husband as a guest at some point because we're
No,
going to hear
that's
some
not
true
gonna
stories
happen.
from him.
No, that is not gonna happen.
You haven't even mentioned him. You mentioned Mako, but
I do have a husband. His name is
okay.
Nolan. He's amazing.
It's good answer. He's from Canada.
He's from Canada. We really enjoy watching hockey. The Lightning are our team, so we can go to games. They're about 40 minutes from our house, so we get to go to games, and we really enjoy that. And man, the Tampa Bay Lightning put on a good show. They really do.
And I'm not a hockey expert by any means, but aren't there hockey teams in Canada?
Yes, yes, they
Oh,
are.
but the Lightning are your team just because they're
Yeah.
close.
So funny story is yes, he's from Canada. Toronto is where he's from. His family is still up there, but if you want to get like Canadian hockey tickets, they're extremely expensive. So his family would frequently drive over the border and go to the Sabres games because they were like a fraction of the price. So he was actually a Sabres fan. And then it took him years to admit that he actually converted, but it's 100% converted into a Lightning fan. Yeah, he's crazy about them. So
I have actually been to a Lightning hockey game.
yeah, in
Yeah,
Tampa,
in Tampa.
cool.
When I
They
was at
they
the
do.
collegiate level, we played volleyball in a national tournament down there, the Elite Eight, whatever you want to call it. It was in University of Tampa hosted it, and so one of our excursions was a Tampa Bay Lightning hockey match,
That's a good excursion.
and they had a goalie by the name of Danny Bishop at the time,
Bish,
and
please.
there were chants in the section I was in that said you can't score on our goalie Danny Bishop. But it was a different tune than what I just said it. But they enjoyed their Tampa Bay Lightning. I'll say that.
Yep, they know how to have a good time.
Very passionate fan base.
It is. It is. And it's weird bringing a hoodie when it's like 100 degrees outside, but you get inside the rink and it's cold and you need to have a sweatshirt. So it's a lot of fun. I love it. It's one of our favorite things to do is go to some Lightning games.
But a hoodie in Florida is kind of doesn't make any sense.
I know it's weird, but it's cold in the rink.
Like
Obviously, ice.
spineless
Dustin.
jellyfish. There's no need to do that.
No, there's ice. It's cold in the rink. You have to wear a hoodie when you're watching the game.
I can attest that with 100% confidence, I did not wear a hoodie at the Tampa Bay Lightning game I was in.
I feel like that makes sense though.
But it is a balmy 80 degrees here in Oklahoma today, which you'd probably have a hoodie on here just because you're not conditioned to
No, I'm not conditioned.
cooler temperatures.
Sure. Well, what about you though? What do you like to do? Tell us what the resume doesn't tell us about you?
There wouldn't be a whole lot. I'm a pretty boring dude. I like to have fun. I'm a jokester. I'm a prankster. There are people in my office that have decided to put Chris Hemsworth's face on most of my pictures in my office.
I have no idea.
So I have hair and I guess remotely attractive if I look like Chris Hemsworth.
Can you send me one of those? Can you take a picture and send
no,
that
I won't
to
do
me?
that. I will not be part of that.
Can someone, if anyone is listening to this from Dustin School, I need a photo of this. Please send it to me.
But I enjoy just living life, having a good time, cracking jokes. We had Philip Lansdale on here not long ago, and Philip talked about a widgy digits. I enjoy a good who's he what's it every now and again. It's candy bar if you haven't had one of those. But I enjoy time away from the office. It's sports. I'm watching a huge Chicago Cubs fan. I've got a daughter named Wrigley. If you know anything about the Cubs, that's Wrigley Field. But the compromise was to spell it differently because my wife is a Cardinals fan, and so she had to spell the name differently. And so people either think I really like gum or I like the Cubs. So either way, I'm good. Um, have a son who's 24 and a daughter-in-law who's 23, and they're varsity basketball coaches. Well, they're 7 through 12. It's how they do things in small schools. They head coach 7 through 12. He's the head coach of the boys. She's the head coach of the girls. Um, and then I have a 9-year-old who's a party looking for a place to happen. She is a good time. She has the personality of her dad, looks like her mom, and Wrigley looks like her dad and acts like her mom. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And Alec is a lot like his dad. So if I'm not in the office, I'm watching sports of some sort, whether it's on my phone or I'm tuned into sports, or I like a good movie. And we've already established that you're not cultured enough to appreciate some of the movies that have been, pre 1987, 88, something like that.
Agree to disagree.
That were around before you were alive. So I love the movie Tombstone. It's a classic for me. Shawshank Redemption, Shooter. Those are movies that if I see them on, I can't turn the channel. I just sit there and watch them, no matter how many times I've seen them. And I can quote Tombstone from start to finish. We could do that now if you'd like, but that'd probably bore most of
it. We're good.
So anyway, me in a nutshell, I just like to have a good time. I'm fun. I think I'm fun. I think at the end of the day, if you can make yourself laugh, that's important. And I laugh at myself frequently, usually because how am I even sitting where I'm sitting? It just baffles me from time to time. But I enjoy time away from the office when I get it. But I'm so locked into what I do that it's a part of what I do. It's just my life. So I don't know that I have the quote unquote work-life balance, because my life is my work.
I think that goes for a lot of athletic directors, and the importance of this. When we're sitting in that chair, you just have to remember to have fun sometimes, right? And laugh at yourself, and make yourself smile every day. So I just really hope this podcast does that for a lot of people out there.
Well, it's kind of the essence of why we started this.
Yeah.
And you had the harebrained idea, not only of the concept, but to for some reason you had a weak moment and decided, hey, I'm gonna call this dude from Arkansas at the time, and the quote was, "I'm gonna ask you a really weird question." That's the way you started that, and asked me if I want to be on a podcast. And I don't know if you thought because I could talk a lot or what, but we'd had maybe 2 conversations prior to that, and then all of a sudden here we are in season 2 of this whole paradox idea. And it was just a conversation. That's what we wanted to have, just a conversation and tell stories and laugh a little bit and have some fun. So it was a natural fit for me, at least from my perspective. And you may be trying to still stick a square peg in a round hole, trying to get me to do what you wanted to do originally. But I'm kind of untamed sometimes. It's hard to corral me, if you will.
All I have to say about the whole conversation is everybody makes mistakes.
We're going to go with that. Okay.
No, everything happens for a reason, right? So here we are, and now we're doing this, and I love this. This is my baby. This is my thing. I love doing this podcast. This is something I really look forward to, and creating these episodes and meeting new people. And I'm lucky to have you be my partner in this, Dustin.
Well, and think about how this has evolved. I mean, we started with Becky Moran way back in the day, and had
Mhm.
had no idea that that story or those stories would impact so many people or be the subject of a lot of conversation. And
Yep.
we've been through a lot of things. Been through a hurricane. I've been through a relocation. I've
Mhm.
changed jobs and um, running for the board and doing the at-large process and understanding
Yep.
all that. I mean, we've experienced some ups and downs in this process and some craziness and some wild, but we made a lot of friends in the process, and we've increased our toolbox, if you will, or
Mhm.
make some takeaways from each of our stories. And I still connect with many of our guests now, and spoke with Corey Adlin yesterday from South Dakota, and he was asking about the board meetings, and I said, "Well, in February, it's cold." He said, "Not for me, because it may be a warm front when he goes from South Dakota to Indianapolis if he ends up being on the board or whatever." So, um, it, I think that's been what's been really fun is the connections we made through this process of people, and you saw one yesterday
Yep.
um, with Lisa Corprew that I call
Mhm.
her Lisa C or just C, and got to see her in her element, got to see her in home state and visit with her, and those are the fun things when you get to talk to people who have listened or been a guest and appreciate just what we're doing, just trying to have some fun.
Yep. Absolutely. And then you get a whole new level of respect for people when you start their they're with like a story, right? Like this is the story, this is what happens, this is how I handle it, this is how I remember it. And it kind of creates a whole new relationship. So yeah, this has been amazing. And I'm really excited to hear your story today, Dustin.
But we'll get to mine after I mean, we may have to sandwich you around me. So we'll start with you since you have two
Oh,
stories. We'll start with you.
I do
Um,
you.
but
This is
first
a hard
question is you
yeah.
talked about Florida. Let's paint on a map where you're actually at,
Oh, we're gonna do that.
geographically
We're gonna do
challenged.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually live in Bradenton, which is south of Tampa and a little bit north of Sarasota. It's a beautiful town. I love living here. It's over on the west coast of Florida. So yeah, it's where I am. I was previously in Kissimmee, which is over by Disney. So I was an AD there and an AD here. Um, it's crazy how 2 hours is so different from the interior of the state to the coast. But I really enjoy living here. I love being, like I said, outside. So having the weather to do that is great, but it's also really interesting to me of how it impacts sports as well. Because like when I first moved here from New York and soccer was in the winter, I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, what do you mean we play soccer in the winter?
Which, with all due respect, that doesn't take a whole lot to blow your mind.
I know, I knew where you're going with that. You didn't need to clarify. I knew what
Okay.
the
Oh,
insult
okay.
was.
I
You
just
didn't
want
have
to
to
make sure that
explain
got out there in
the
case
insult to me.
there was some question. There was an insult. That was just a statement.
This is not going well. Let's restart.
I'm quite enjoying this, actually.
Yeah, so, yeah, that's where I am. And what about you? You've had 2 different locations as well, but yours has been a little bit different than mine.
Yeah, I'm originally from Oklahoma, a small town called Pahuska, Oklahoma, which is an old Native American reservation, and grew up in a small town. I'm from a large family, but grew up in a small town. And then when we first started on this journey, I was an athletic director in Arkansas, and now I'm an athletic director in Oklahoma, which is back to my home state. And I was, I mean, I claimed Arkansas while I was there. And so I was at Greenwood, Arkansas. I've been at the collegiate level as an athletic director. I tell people I'm a recovering collegiate athletic director. Um, and I've had some therapy. I've gone through some counseling just to try to overcome all that I saw at that level. But and I've been at the high school level for going on 9 years now, and it's been a great ride. It's been fun. It's been eye opening. Blow your mind at some things that you experience, as you said. But yeah, I moved to Oklahoma, and in Arkansas they play fast pitch softball in the spring. In Oklahoma they play it in the fall, and they play slow pitch in the spring, which is it's unique. There's not many states who play slow pitch anymore. So trying to adjust when you've been programmed all this time to play fast pitch in the fall, in the spring. Now you just have a summer, and here you are. You're right in the middle of it, and we're
Weird.
about to start regionals and state. And I mean, it's a wild process, but
Mm.
I've been blessed and fortunate to be at some really cool places that have experienced a lot of success. So, um, on a map, I'm in Northeast Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm just south of it. I mean, and by south, I mean like 12 miles. And well, I can't say even 12 miles. We're closer than that. So I'm right near the city of Tulsa in the town of Broken Arrow. And I've been asked, am I fixing the Broken Arrow, yada, yada, yada. And no, we take great pride in that Broken Arrow. So I'm not fixing it. No.
Staying broken.
Right.
Okay.
So,
That'd be fine.
so now that we got the geography lesson and you kind of know exactly where I'm at, let's start with one of your stories, and then we'll hit the other one on the tail end and just kind of have a sandwich of Danielle stories.
Okay, so this was kind of hard because I have my fair share of funny stories, or stories that I think are kind of out there. And I shared a couple of them on some of our episodes. So I didn't want to use one of those. So like we all know about the alligator on the tennis court. Okay,
Well, I
so
may not know, but we're
you
just
can go
going to
back and
assume
listen to
people
that
know.
episode. We've already told it. I don't want to retell a story, right? And we all know about my sprinklers that were hit by lightning and decided to go off in the middle of football. That doesn't even matter. We want to visit these stories again because they're not stories that I want to even think about again. So I was really trying to figure out some stories that I could tell that I haven't mentioned on here before, and I came up with two little guys, and one of them is not funny, but it happened, and it happened during football season, and we're in football season, so I thought maybe this would be a good a good one to tell. But pretty much we're at my football game. We're at a home football game for me. Great crowd, everything is going great, gorgeous night. We're playing the game, everything's going well. And we've talked about officials many times on this podcast and how they're hard to we're hard to get. We have to make sure, we have some new ones coming in. They're getting older, shortage of officials. So anyway, officials are there, game is going on. We're probably like through the first quarter at least. So the game's been going on for a good bit. Anyway, I hear the crowd go. I'm on the sideline. I don't know what I was doing, but all I hear is the crowd go, "Oh!" That's not good, right? I don't know what happened. I didn't see it.
You just hear the response.
I hear the crowd like collectively go, "Oh!" or something like that. Like it's not a good sound that I heard. So the trainers start running out onto the field. I'm like, what's going on? So I go over and I look. And in the process, this is nobody's fault. To be very clear, this was nobody's fault. But one of the officials got hit. And it was the oldest official we probably have that ever comes to our school. Like up there. Probably easily in his 70s, maybe. So he gets hit. He is not getting up.
Hit, where did he get hit?
I didn't see it, but he got hit by a player. He was in the way and a player was just rammed into him. So I don't actually know the answer to your question. I didn't see it myself. I just, like I said, heard the crowd reaction. So official is not getting up. He's down.
So where are you at this time?
I'm at the sideline headed towards this now because I didn't even realize this was an official at first.
Yeah, where were you when it happened? What were you doing?
I was down by the sideline, towards the end zone.
The opposite end?
Yeah. And I'm not entirely, I don't know what I was doing in that moment, but I was over there. I don't know what I was doing. I was talking, I think I was standing with my principal. We're talking about something. I don't know. And this happened. So I
So
have
you
to
were
get over
standing with your
there.
principal. Was it like Tony Miller standing with the principal when he just said go?
No, because when it actually happened and this all happened, like you know when you're standing on the end of the sideline, but it's on that side of the field, like I couldn't see through all of my football team. So I initially did not know that the person that was hit was an official, right? So the trainer and all of our athletic trainers, our student athletic trainers run out, they do their thing. Everything is fine to me. Everything is currently fine to me because my everything's working as it should. Okay, my trainer's out there, they're taking care of it. Well, one of the student athletic, this is where things start to go south. One of the student athletic trainers runs over to me and they were like, well, point, it's the official. The official got hit. They're like, and they were like, the trainer at the time, they're like, Bruce wants you, like right now. And I'm like, oh God, okay. So like I run over there at this point and they got him off of, so now he's on the sideline. This official is now on the sideline, like off over to the sideline a little bit. And trainer's working on him. We have EMS at and the fire trucks, all of that. We have all the ambulances, they're all at the game. So now they are running over as well. So now he's got a group around him. So he's being taken care of. He's being fine. But now the game is now continuing to go on. So we have a game a couple feet this way. We have an official down right here on the sideline. And I'm looking at him and I'm trying to figure out, like, just feel the situation. Like, how bad is this? So he comes to a little bit. He was confused. He didn't know his name and he didn't know his phone number or anybody else's phone number. So I'm like, okay, let me go into Arbiter. That's the system that we used.
So let me ask this question. If I was to say, Danielle, do you know my phone number? Would you be able to tell my phone number?
No, but I would know my own name, Dustin.
Right. I'm just asking. You used that as a clarifying point for him. He wasn't able to answer his phone, or to answer that question.
He doesn't know his own phone number?
No, but you said he didn't know anybody's number.
Well, his wife, anybody. We were trying to get anything. He didn't know anything.
Okay.
He's awake, but he doesn't know his name. He's a little confused. He doesn't have any numbers to give us. Like, I didn't know anything. So I go into Arbiter. That's the system that we use for our officials. And I'm trying to look up. And you know how, like, you have different permissions? Do you use Arbiter, Dustin?
We do.
Okay. So you know how, like, different, like, associations give you different permissions? So, like, apparently football didn't give me the permissions to find out this dude's information or, like, emergency contact, because I didn't have it for football. So now I start calling my assigner, okay? I know that my assigner usually works on Friday nights too. He's not answering me because he's working the football game, right? Football game's going on. So I talk to the side official as he's, like, running up and down the field. I'm like, do you have what's his name? Tells me his name. I'm like, do you have, like, his phone number, like, kid, wife, like, what, anybody, family member? He's like, I don't. He's like, I don't have anything. And he's like, maybe the white hat does. And I'm like, okay. So now I am almost in, like, a panic mode. I'm not panicking, but, like, inside, I don't like the situation that I'm having because.
Did the game continue without him there?
The game is continuing without him there.
So they were down an official.
Correct.
So the mechanics are different. They have to readjust.
They're working. Exactly.
Is it a 5-man crew prior to this and then becomes a 4-man crew?
No. No, definitely not. So
how many officials did you have then?
Well, when I also think we had, and I think what happened that night is I think we had a clock operator. I think we had the scoreboard and a clock operator. So I think one of them ran down. I think that's what ended up happening. So we were like, okay, in the field, the game could go on. They handled all of that. The official crew handled it so, like, their aspect of it so well that I didn't need to. What I didn't like about this is we have emergency cards, right? Like, we know what to do when our kids go down, and we have these emergency cards, and we have all of this information that we could help. We can help. We can make sure everybody knows. We can communicate. I didn't have that with this official. I was concerned about him. Like, what if this was my dad and this happened to, or somebody that I really cared about? I hated that I did not have immediate access to this guy's information. It was something that, like, I didn't know how bad this was. So they end up taking him in the ambulance, like taking him to get him checked out, like in the hospital. So he ends up getting carted and taken off the field. I think like a timeout happened right around that time. So I run out and talk to the white hat who knew of someone who had his wife's number, called his wife, so gets me that number. I call the wife. I let them know where they took him and what happened. A signer calls me back at like his halftime because I don't normally call like light up the signer and like text him and be like, "Hey, call me when you get this." Like, so he calls me at halftime. He's like, "Do you know what's going on?" And I tell him what's happening, and like he gives me all the information. We did the best that we could, but like I talked to the signer afterwards, and I was like, I didn't like this. I felt very responsible for not being able to help further. I don't know if we need to have access to this arbiter. I don't know if we need to have like maybe the white hat needs to have an emergency contact, right? They need to have a card that has an emergency contact for all of their officials in case something like this happens again, which is actually what my association ended up doing and adopting. So now the white hat had a card that they kept on them with everybody's emergency contact information. But it was just a random thing that happened. The official ended up being okay. He was only a clock operator from there on out. He never went back on the field. But it was a
Was that
blind
injury
spot.
related or was that age related?
It was, I believe it was probably age related and ego related. I don't know. It was smart. It was a good call. But I mean, so he continued officiating. He just did it up in the press box instead. And I think that was a really good compromise to keep, a good official that we had. But it was a blind spot in my process where I feel confident. I have emergency action plans. I know what I'm going to do for this or for this. Like I have everything and I think I'm feeling confident. And there was a little blind spot that happened that probably I can't be the only person this happened to.
Well, you had multiple blind spots apparently in the system, and then you couldn't see what was going on because you were down on the opposite end and couldn't see through your
my massive football players.
Right.
They're way larger than me. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I would provide some advice. You could probably have stepped out onto the field and looked down.
I did.
I did
after it happened. I did after it happened.
So you didn't have
when I heard the noise. When I heard the noise of the crowd, the whole like the breathtaking way of the crowd, I obviously went and did that. People are crowded around, and then I finally figured out what happened. But for me, it wasn't this like initial. It took like 30 seconds to a minute for me to actually know what happened before. It wasn't like I saw it right in front of me and I was like, oh no. So
what do I do?
What am I going to do? One of my student trainers ran up and they're like, Coach White, the official, he proceeds you down. I'm like, okay.
I mean, you think about that though, even when an official, I mean, you have all these games, but if an official goes down, and there were a couple times with the COVID situation that we had one official for basketball, and they were doing junior high basketball and trying to do the best they can. There's no way they could see every call.
Yeah.
But you think about a 5-man crew in football or a 6-man, and they lose a guy or a person, then how do they adjust to that? And then you think about all the things that could complicate that. Who do we contact? How do we get in hold of them? Especially in this situation when he was not cuckoo a little bit. And
yeah.
I mean,
it was scary.
There's so many things that you don't have that in the emergency action plan.
No, but I did after that. That was something that I was cognizant of for all of my officials because that could have happened to anybody. We're sitting here saying this is age related, but really it isn't, right? Like maybe he didn't get out of the way quick enough, but this could have happened to anybody. Somebody could have stumbled over something. They could have just gotten hit really in any sport. Baseball could hit somebody or softball or something could happen. A pole could fall on the field. We've had that happen on this. Like there are so many things that could happen where I immediately felt responsibility for this person. Like the game was going on, but like it was not my attention.
They continued to play.
They did continue to play. I don't think anybody thought it was as bad as it was. I really think that everybody just saw I kind of had the wind knocked out of him. So like no like discredit to anybody like on the field or the officials or the kids. Like I don't think everybody realized like that he didn't take this hit very well. Um so and then when he got up and I'm like, what is your name? And he couldn't even tell me, and I'm like trying to figure out who it is and on the arbiter, and like then I was like, man, I should have done a better job remembering their names when I introduced myself. Like there was so much self-doubt that was going on, but this was something that really stuck with me. And a positive thing that came out of it, I did have this conversation with the assigner, and I was like, this was scary for me. Like I wanted to help. I wanted to do more. I don't mind helping more. Right? Like I'm capable of like helping more than I was able to, but I couldn't. I didn't have the information that I needed. Can we rectify this? And I was like, even just like a card, if the White has a card of everybody's emergency contact on them or something, it would help. Oh, that's what it was, Dustin. I remember it now. The White Hat had the wife's number, but it was in his cell phone. Where was his cell phone?
Well, it's in the locker room.
It was in the locker room. That's what happened. So I remember it was in the locker room. So I ran into the locker room. He told me where it was in his bag. I got it out of his bag and I ran it back out to him on the field. And that's how he ended up giving it to me.
You know, I've had some students that have held up their phone to the official and say, hey, you've had 13 missed calls. I've got your phone. You've had 13 missed calls. So they generally don't carry that with them on the, but a
Absolutely, as
student
they
section
shouldn't.
may have said something.
Yeah, as they shouldn't. But like he was like, go get it. Here it is. And he like told me where it was in his bag. I went in and got his bag. Or I went in and I got his phone and I ran it back out to him. And then he gave me the number. That's what it was. I knew there was something with the phone number. It took a minute for us to get the wife's phone number, but that's what it was. I mean, all of that makes sense. Nobody did anything wrong here. I just think we could have been better. We could have been more prepared for this situation. And I'm happy to say that I was after that. And I'm happy to say that he was okay. So my delay in not being able to contact his emergency information it didn't affect anything, thankfully. But like, then the question goes, is that even my responsibility? I don't know.
But it was a home event for you.
It is, but like, is it the White House, the officials? Like, I don't even know. I didn't even care. Like, I would want someone to contact me immediately if that was one of my family members.
Well, I mean, but you've got to have a way to do that, and you
Mm-hmm.
provided that after said event happened.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just think that's a really important story because we do have a shortage of officials. Some of them are getting older, and it's not the first thing that I ever thought of until it actually happened to me. So I think it's just a good reminder of maybe some extra like little things that we can do to help, especially if you're at a school that doesn't get the same officials over and over again, right? Like sometimes you have the same crew, sometimes you don't. This wasn't one that I was familiar with. So.
And the game continued.
Yes, game continued.
I mean, that just blows my mind that this guy is maybe really hurt. And they just, hey, get off on the side. We got things to do. We got a game to play.
We talked about it at halftime with the officials that went in there, and like we all talked about it, and I was like, no, he's okay. They're just like taking him in to like check him out and all of this stuff. And then after the game, the wife and the White Hat went to the hospital to get him and to check on him. And like, so there was a plan afterwards. There was a clear line of communication, like everything. And I was texting with the White Hat after that. So like, I knew everything was okay after that, but there was a period there where I just felt like I wasn't equipped to do the best thing that I could do for my official.
And sometimes we find that out in our chair. We're not equipped, and we have a blind spot, and that's why part of this conversation, part of this podcast is an opportunity to identify some blind spots that maybe we have. And sometimes experience is the best teacher. And so you get that experience of going through that, and now all of a sudden things are changed. You look at it and say, now I need to do this. And I start thinking about what would it look like on a Friday night here, or a Tuesday night, or a volleyball match. If my up official goes down, what happens? Then, I mean, that's very realistic things that could happen. So what's the plan in case that event happens?
And that's why I really recommend that card, because like he could keep that in his pocket out on the field, right? They don't have to go rummaging through his bag to get his phone. Give him his phone. He's looking at it on the sideline. He's like, here it is. And then like I open his phone back. We could have skipped all of that if he just simply had it in his card in a card in his pocket. And I'm really proud to say that like the association was really accommodating, and they were concerned and listening, and they're like, this was eye opening for not just me, also, our football officials association. So it was a yeah. I am so grateful that it turned out the way it did and that everybody was okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good report, obviously, and there's some things you took away from the situation, an opportunity to get better, and that's what we hope
Yeah.
people find out in this podcast, an opportunity to get
Yeah.
better and laugh a little bit, yes, and the crazy things that we deal with, like Zach Clark losing his ring at the football field, and how do you even function, comments like that, and now you have a
Mhm.
blind spot. You had a blind spot that night because you were off talking to the principal about who knows what and not paying attention, and you just hear a
I
reaction
didn't
to,
say that I wasn't
"Oh,
paying attention.
oh, oh." I mean, I heard
That
that's
is
what you
no,
did.
I know that's what you heard. But like, I don't know. I just think about it. Like, I don't know I've never had a conversation with another athletic director where they're like the conversation is, are your officials here? Are they assigned and are they here? Right? Those are the conversations you have around officials. You don't have what is their contact information in case they get hurt. Like, so I know we have other avenues of getting it, and I know I got it eventually, and like I probably could for anybody. And some of the associations give that information on Arbiter. There are other options, but I just didn't like the speed at which it took. It took my attention away from what if something else happened at the same time, right? I couldn't focus on this one thing. So I just think that there's other better ways that we could improve and we could do it and take my experience of what happened and make yours better.
Yeah, learn from you.
Yep.
That would
Mhm.
I'm not sure how often that's said to you, but maybe some of our listeners will learn from you.
Thought we were doing better, but we're not.
Oh, it's I mean, I don't wanna set the bar too high.
Yeah.
Realistic. Wanna be real here. Keep
Yeah.
it 100, as the kids say.
Mhm. All right, well, what do you got, Dustin? Tell me your story.
You know, I we've had Steve Throne on here before, and Throney talked about his travel exploits and his challenges, I guess we'll say. And this one of my responsibilities in Arkansas was the state coordinator, state education coordinator. And so part of that through the NIAAA is that they do a state coordinator summit. And the state coordinator summit brings together everybody that's a state coordinator in their respective state to one location. In this instance, it was um, in Indianapolis, and you represent your state and you meet all the other state coordinators from all the other states. And so there's a conglomeration of us, a large gathering, if you will, of people that are like-minded. And so I come into that meeting, and it's one of my earlier trips as a state coordinator. So we go there, get to meet people, and just really, it's about the best professional development you can get. It's a great weekend. It's very intense. Learning, networking, just trying to make your education processes better for your state. So I meet two guys that have both been guests on this show, and Dan Talbot and Darren Coe. And Dan is from Florida, and Darren is from North Carolina. And so we have some discussions. We have a good time, just banter back and forth. So we come in on a Friday, we leave on a Monday afternoon. So we land in Indianapolis on a Friday and we leave on Monday. And part of the request from the PDA committee is that you bring some kind of door prize, some kind of thing that represents your state, or, and you put it on a table and people get their name drawn and you get something handed to you. Hey, you got this door prize, whatever. And so it's a great time to, get your state logo out there, have representation somehow, some way. So they do multiples of these door prizes and the drawings throughout the entire summit. So don't think nothing about it. I mean, you get your name called and you get something, you're excited, and it could be It could be somebody who is your size getting a, we'll say in Steve Throne terms, triple-licious. Maybe it's a 3X and you're not going to wear a 3X, but you get this. And so you get these door prizes, and part of it's the fun of what you're going to get. And so anyway, you get a large number of this. So we all go through this, not thinking anything of it. We get our stuff and we go to the airport on Monday. So you leave in the afternoon, you book your flight. So the Indianapolis airport is not huge, but we're flying out of there. And so when I get there, I happen to run into Darren Coe and Dan Talbot. And Dan Talbot is carrying a gift bag. It's a purple gift bag, which I think is odd because he's already gone through security. He's already, could check bags if he wanted to, whatever. So he's carrying this purple bag, to which Darren Coe and I both get some amusement of having the conversation. Okay, what's in the bag? Why is Big Dan Talbot why is this large Italian man carrying a purple gift bag through the airport in Indianapolis? I thought it was a natural question, thought it was pretty obvious, and maybe it's just the way my mind works. So we asked him, and he says, this was a door prize that I received from South Dakota. And he pulls it out, and it's this jar. And since this experience has happened, this jar has been labeled as an urn. It's been labeled as a wide variety of things, voodoo jar. So anyway, we were all sitting there and we're kind of looking at it, having dinner, because our flights weren't taking off right when we were there. So we had some time. So we're sitting there just having discussion and kind of recapping what happened at the summit, cracking some jokes, talking about anytime you're around Dan Talbot or Darren Coe, you're going to have some laughs. And so we were just having some laughs at one another's expense and maybe some other people's expense as well. And they weren't there to defend themselves, so they don't know that we were talking about them. So we're having this discussion. Dan whips out this jar, and it's a jar, and he said, this came from South Dakota. And so we're looking at the jar. We see the jar. We did not realize the power that said jar had. And so we all get done eating, go our separate ways, go to get the airport or go to our terminal or our gate or whatever, so that we can load our plane and head back to our respective.
What is in the jar?
We didn't get that far. It was just a jar. I don't know if it's a decorative jar. I don't know. I mean, there was something in there because I'll get to that part of the story. Mm-hmm. So we all go to our respective gates because we're all going to different locations. And so we go to our respective gates and we're texting one another. And Darren Coe says, "Oh, crap. This is via text. Oh, crap." And we're like, "Oh, what happened now?" He's like, "Well, my flight is not just delayed. They told me it's not going to take off till tomorrow. So I need to go back to the hotel." So we think, what a weird coincidence. That's him taking this flight and he's got to go back to the hotel. So Dan and I are having some fun at his expense, like, haha, you got to stay in Indy another night. We're all getting back. And the next thing I know, I get a text from Dan. "Hey, I think I'm getting out of here, but everything's grounded in Atlanta. I can't get back home." And so I text the two of them. I'm like, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to Dallas. My flight's getting to Dallas. No problem. So I land in Dallas, check on the guys. And there's been some banter going back and forth. I can't obviously find it on my phone because I'm in the air, but we land and Darren has gone back to the hotel. Dan is stuck in Atlanta. He can't get to Tampa. And then I get to Dallas and I'm thinking, oh man, I've dodged all this. Well, I get to Dallas. My flight's delayed from Dallas back to Arkansas. And so here the three of us.
And you are all blaming this on the jar.
Yeah, it's all on the jar. There's no question. So we are starting to piece this together. It's the voodoo jar from South Dakota. And so my flight's delayed. We also had Scott Drabzik was there. And Scott, when he got to the airport, he had a flat tire. He was all part of this. So it's all part of this voodoo jar that comes from South Dakota. Mm-hmm. So we have some jokes about it. Finally, everybody gets home. I mean, some people it was the next day. Some people it was later. It's delayed, whatever. So this past year, we had our friend from South Dakota and Corey Adlin who was at the trip or at the summit. And so Dan is holding court. He's saying what he says. He says, if anybody gets something from South Dakota, don't take it. Don't get that door prize because here's what happened. And so we tell this story about all of us being delayed and it's impacting our flight somehow, some way. So Corey happens to sit right next to Dan the whole summit. So he's just wearing it the whole time about, hey, we got this from South Dakota. You got some voodoo. What'd you bring this year? And if we get this, then we're not taking it. Well, said jar was on Dan's desk at some point, and somehow it fell off and broke. So the running joke was he was going to bring it back every year and just kind of put it on the table for somebody else to get to share this experience of the voodoo jar, the urn, or whatever you want to call it. So this year, Corey's sitting at the table. I'm sitting at a table behind them. I'm Team Indigo, their team. I don't remember what it was, but we were designated colors at our table. So we're just wearing Corey out about this whole process. Hey, you brought some kind of voodoo. We don't want it if we get it, whatever. So all thinking it's fun and jokes and whatever. Get to the airport on Monday this year. No voodoo jar that I'm aware of. None of us got that. We get to the airport this year, and Darren and Dan, I'm pretty sure Darren and Dan left the meeting and got to the airport. Well, I get there, and Darren was supposed to be gone hours before. And I get there, and he's like, we're delayed. We're delayed. I'm like, we don't even have the voodoo jar. I mean, how are you delayed? He's like, yeah, we can't get to Charlotte. We're delayed. So people were trying to go to Charlotte. Their flight wasn't there. And that's Daryl Nance and Kevin G. Adams. Everybody was on this flight. Bobby Hall. A bunch of people were trying to get on this flight. Taguchi, Masonari Taguchi. If you know him, he's a very large individual. He's like a Steve Throne. Easy to identify in a pack of people. So there's a bunch of people that can't get on their flight. So I'm thinking, okay, my flight's supposed to be at this time. Well, I go to the terminal. We're delayed like 15 minutes. Awesome. So here we go. This is going to start again. I don't know if it's Indianapolis Airport or I'm blaming the voodoo jar that come from South Dakota.
That no longer exists.
Well, that's been damaged. We'll say that.
Okay.
It is not fulfilling its intended purpose. We'll say that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I get to finally my flight boards. We take off. I get to Dallas, and I get a text message from Darren Coe, who is still on the runway because they have a tire issue, and they have not taken off yet because the tire issue you need to repair. The kind of tires are kind of important, so Darren can't get there. So I say all this to say it wasn't actually in an athletic event, but it's a bunch of athletic directors that have been having travel woes, and people have travel woes all the time. This is coincidentally the same time. I mean, all of us are impacted after the South Dakota voodoo jar that comes from Corey Adlin. And just to prove that it is not that voodoo was just for everybody outside of South Dakota, I get a text message from Corey Adlin when I am in Dallas that says, I guess it's real. I don't get to fly into South Dakota until like 1:30 in the morning. He'd been delayed so long, like flying out of Atlanta, where he went to Atlanta, and and of course his comment was, "Of course, you got to fly to Atlanta to go to South Dakota. That makes sense from Indianapolis. I mean, there's a much shorter path, but he was really delayed in his flight. So the curse of the voodoo jar is real, and I can tell you that." You could have Dan Talbot, we can get Darren Coe, we can get Corey Adlin, everybody back on this, and they will all attest to this voodoo jar that came from South Dakota. So the moral of the story, the takeaway is, if you get a door prize from South Dakota, don't take it.
That's your moral of the story.
That's what I take away from it.
You just
and I will have
so many athletic directors across the country.
I mean, and I like people from South Dakota. Joey Strue is a great person. Jim Dorman's a great person.
Doesn't sound like you like South Dakota.
I mean, yes, he's a great person. He just cursed us.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, I'm glad you got it home. I do have a picture of this because I don't know how much I want you to see this voodoo jar you speak of.
Yeah, I don't know that I have the picture, or I'd show it to you. Um, let me just see if I've got.
You, I was like, you may have to work on getting that, but yeah, that sounds like quite the experience.
Um, we may or may not had some fun at Corey's expense. We had a picture of him and maybe drew devil ears on him, and just because that was the issue. um, I'm trying to see it. Darren Co. I don't know if you can see this or not.
No, move it over a little. Oh, yeah, a little bit.
The broken jar.
Yeah,
It wasn't the
oh,
actual jar.
that's probably worse. I don't think you're supposed to break broken. You don't think you're supposed to
You're
break
definitely not supposed to
voodoo
break
jars.
broken things.
No, break
Right.
voodoo jars is what I was
You're
trying to
not
say.
supposed to break broken things. I'll admit to that.
Okay. Oh man.
I'm trying to find the jar, but I can't find the actual jar. And
If
the
you
funny
have it
part of
later,
this
I'll post a
story,
picture of it.
yeah, we can post it to our Twitter page or something. But the funny thing about this is, um, Dan actually displayed it in a podcast episode. It was on the corner of his desk, and somehow he nudged the desk or something. That's where it fell over and broke.
What's
So
ours?
it's like a mirror. You're supposed to have 7 years of bad luck. I don't believe in that, but I mean, somehow this voodoo jar has corrupted easy plans or good plans.
The majority, like a lot of the 80s across the country, just messed them
Right.
all up.
Not just one, not just
So
the
don't
person.
ever travel with any of you. That's what I get from this story. Travel with
Well,
none of you.
no, it's not us. It's the jar.
Mm, but you've all like touched it, and now you have the bad like voodoo mojo.
So
So
when you flew to Arkansas for the Arkansas
mhm.
AD conference, did you have
Mm,
issue?
I don't think so.
On your return trip, did you have issue?
Yes, I was
No, you
delayed.
did not. Don't just come up
I
with an
was
answer.
delayed. I
No,
really was. It
you
wasn't
were
like
not.
ridiculous. It wasn't
You were not.
ridiculous though.
Yeah, you weren't traveling with me, but you came to Arkansas. Things were okay.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
for Arkansas.
So yeah, don't blame it on me. When you flew to Virginia, did you have problems there?
No, I'm not gonna ever travel with you. I'm not gonna make sure you're on my flight. If you're having travel issues, I'm not getting on the same plane as you. I'm out.
No, it's not me.
Okay.
It's the voodoo jar.
Open to interpretation.
Yeah, and that's my interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the voodoo jar.
You
I'm
have a
sticking
blind
to it.
spot right now on your bad luck.
No,
Mm-hmm.
Corey Adlin is the direct culprit for this.
Obviously. Obviously.
Yeah, we're gonna blame him no matter what. So
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily in the course of an event, other than I was fulfilling my role as the state coordinator for athletic directors, and because of said role, I was, I guess, punished with travel issues because of one Corey Adlin or the voodoo jar from South Dakota.
Oh man.
And we may have to have Corey on here to try to defend himself. I don't know
Oh, we
how.
absolutely are going to get Corey on here.
I don't know that he can accurately defend himself, because we've given that opportunity to some other people to be able to defend themselves. Phil Risen and Lannis Robinson, and I mean, we've given people an opportunity. So we may have to have Corey, and what we may need to do is have Corey, Darren, and Dan on all at the same time, just so they can have some. They can all
We can
attest.
hash this out once and for all.
Right. The woes that were caused by said jar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't know that all of South Dakota is bad. I know Corey Adlin bringing a door prize is bad. So whoever got it from South Dakota this year, good luck.
What was it? Do you know what it was?
I don't know who it was. I
No,
don't know
what it was. Like, what was the gift?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that Corey was ever going to admit to anything. I think it would have been priceless if we had that gift just as a recurring gift, just like regifting it every year, showing it up and just placing it on the table. because it's not like they check it off and say, "Oh, okay, here's South Dakota's, or here's Oklahoma's, or here's Florida's." You just put it on the table, and then they start giving those things away. So it could have blended in well.
Oh, I see. There's a
And
lot
we
going
would
on
have all
here.
known.
There's a
We
lot
would have
going on
known.
here.
Right. We would have known. And I'm not saying I'm a prankster. I'm not saying I would have done something like that. Okay, I'm saying I would have done something like that. I would have put it out there and just had somebody else experience the fun that that brings.
That's awful to wish that upon one of your fellow colleagues across the country.
I know this is a risk. I'm going to take this risk and asking, have you ever seen Christmas Vacation? National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Parts of it.
Ugh. I'm done with you.
I said I like being outside. I don't watch a ton of movies.
But that has nothing to do with whether you watch movies or not. You like to be outside. You got to be inside sometimes. There's hurricanes. There's night. You're not hiking at night. All
There's
kinds
not
of stuff.
hurricanes during Christmas time.
But it don't matter. Christmas Vacation is a quality show.
I will do better. I will sit on the couch and I will watch movies.
I ask you that because the great philosopher Cousin Eddie says, Clark, it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Just like you are to me.
No, just like this jar, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Even after its time has expired, it's still giving a gift that just keeps on giving.
Mm-hmm.
So I would quote the great philosopher, Cousin Eddie.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who that is?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You're lying.
I do.
You don't, or you do?
I do.
You don't do?
No, I do. I do know who he is. I've seen parts of it.
Yeah, have you seen said part?
I know about the moose mug.
Yeah. Well, he got the Jelly of the Month Club. That's what Clark got as his bonus. And Cousin Eddie's response is, it's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year round. That's what I feel about this voodoo jar.
I don't have any words for you. I don't have any words for you. You were the first guest that has made me speechless.
Right. Not the first host, because that's happened many times, but the first guest that has rendered you speechless, which is quite a task.
It is. It is.
You are fluent in the words.
Come on.
You are.
All right.
But you're also fluent in the silence.
I hope it is true. I hope that our stories helped today. They were really funny. I do have a funny one that I want to share, but it needs more time than we have left. So I think it needs to wait.
Let's do a part two.
We need to do this again, though. We need to do this again.
Part two.
Mm-hmm. We need to do this again because I do have a couple of really funny ones, but I just felt really compelled to share my football one because I think that's an important one.
So you're saying mine wasn't important?
It's almost Halloween. We can talk about voodoo jars all you want.
There's some sound knowledge being dropped there. There's some advice.
Didn't say there wasn't.
Have you ever received a jar from South Dakota? Let me ask you that.
No, and I don't think I want one.
That's a life motto. Like me, I don't stay in hotels with a number in them.
What?
I don't stay in hotels.
You know what? I don't even want to know.
Yeah, we can go deep. There's a life motto. I don't intercept a punch intended for somebody else.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That one does.
You stay in a hotel with a number in it. I don't care what Tom Bodette says. I don't care if they leave the light on for you. I'm not staying in a hotel with a number in it.
Wow. I mean, I guess I can get on board with that.
Super 8.
Think about that for a minute. Yeah.
Do you know who Tom Bodette is? I should have just stopped. I should have stopped at Cousin Eddie.
You had a win there for a minute. You had a win for a minute.
Yeah, you had a win.
Okay. Oh man. Well, did I enjoy this? I was going to say I enjoyed this, but did I?
Well, I enjoyed it. I think it was fun, and I hope our listeners will think it's fun. This is another opportunity, and we'll do this again. We'll do a part 2, and I'll actually tell stories from when I was sitting in the AD chair and experienced a couple of things. I've talked about the bats before. I've talked about a variety of things, but there are a couple that you scratch your head and think,
That just happened?
is this an out-of-body experience or is this the real deal?
Mhm.
But well, what they call that a cliffhanger in the movie industry. So we'll just leave it a
Thank you.
cliffhanger. Come back for part 2.
Yeah. Nope, I think that's a great idea. I think we need to do this, and I would, yeah. I mean, I'd love to hear I would love to hear some feedback from our listeners, right? Do they even like this? Do they want to hear us talk more? I mean, maybe they want us to talk less. I don't know which way this is going to go.
Well, if I leave the review, don't take it
50-50.
personally. Instead of more cowbell, they want more Dustin.
No. Today vote. Are you on Team Dustin or Team Danielle? We need to vote. Oh man,
I'm not
that's
sure
funny.
you want to see those results.
Okay. All right. Maybe you're not as lovable as you think.
I'm probably not.
We're gonna have to handle the rest of this off air. After the recording, the rest of this conversation is going to be handled.
And hopefully we're back for another episode. If not,
hopefully we'll be back for another episode. If everyone's like, stop talking, then maybe
I'll have
maybe
a card in my pocket in case something happens. People can contact me.
Come on, that's a good advice.
No, I'm just saying, if something
Fun of
happens
my
to them,
advice.
people know who to contact.
Don't anyone call if Dustin goes down. Just leave them there.
That's really harsh.
Till next week.
Yeah, till next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
That wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our sponsor, Wall of Fame, who excels at telling your school stories and supports us in telling ours. Check out the description of this episode for a link to receive a discount on all Wall of Fame products. We are looking forward to the next story and hope you are too.